For a good long while now, Tesla and Google have had quite a nice relationship. But is it time for Tesla to leave the nest and ditch Google Maps? Plus, Tesla releases its Q1 production and delivery numbers and updates about SpaceX. Let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I first want to say a really quick thank you to everyone. March was, by all metrics, everything, the best month that I have ever had for this little channel, and I really do appreciate it. To everybody who watches the videos, likes the videos, subscribes to the channel, joins Patreon, channel membership, all of those things help out a ton, and I really do appreciate it. April is going to be a very busy month because that's always the busiest month at a university since it's the last full month of the year, but I will do my best to keep cranking things out. And by the by, if anybody has been using AG1 since I did my original ads back in February, hit me up and let me know about it because I will be doing some more in April and May. And I, for one, have had an amazing experience with AG1, but I'm wondering about you all as well. I'll be happy to mention you if you did have a good experience with it. All right, so first, a little update about SpaceX and Starship. I've heard from a couple of little birdies that the orbital test flight is going to be very soon. I should specify suborbital. It's supposed to take off from Boca Chica and land in the ocean near Kauai, Hawaii, if everything goes well. But anyway, my understanding is that it is going to be happening very soon, and that Elon Musk, Gwen Shotwell, and other higher-ups at SpaceX are not pleased about the fact that it has leaked that it's happening so soon. So anyway, that's just what I've heard. I don't know. I, unfortunately, if it happens in April, will be so busy that I will not be able to get there, which is a super bummer, but I'll be at the next one if I can't make the first one. Second of all, as I'm sure you already heard, there is huge news from Tesla. That is that they produced 440,808 Model S, 3, X, and Y vehicles total, 19,437 for Models S and X, and 421,371 for Models 3 and Y. And then Tesla's deliveries were 422,875 units. So if you look at that, when Tesla stopped doing quite such a substantial push at the end of each quarter, they created a bit of a backlog at the end of the quarter. It looks like that has actually stabilized. More importantly, this is the biggest delivery number ever. So not only is it the biggest Q1 delivery ever, Q1 of course being the lowest quarter for automotive deliveries just historically year after year. So not only did they beat last year's Q1 delivery numbers, but they beat Q4 of 2022, which is a massive win for Tesla. So good on them. This is just absolutely amazing. We actually are one of those vehicles. So I guess they would have had 422,874 deliveries without us, but we love our Model 3. My wife, Miss Information, is actually driving it back and forth to South Georgia today, so she is very much enjoying the new car. And if you're interested, Tesla will do their Q1 financials after market close on Wednesday, April 19th, so that will be actually a little bit sooner than normal this year. All right, so let's talk navigation data. If you saw my FSD Beta 11.3.4 first drive yesterday, and if you haven't, you can check it out up here. Several people noted on Twitter and other places that I said the biggest problems with Tesla's FSD at this point is the navigation data issue that they have. So let's talk about what Tesla currently does and what I think they should do in the future. Now, there are contractual obligations that I'm sure that they have that could make this much more complicated, but I don't know anything about that. I'm just going to give an outside opinion about this. Of course, this is all my humble opinion and speculation, so take it with a grain of salt if you want. But I do think that it is time for Tesla to divorce themselves from Google Maps. So currently what Tesla does is they utilize Google Maps just like if you use Google Maps on your phone. If you use Google Maps or something like that, or if you use Waze or any of a number of other map services, they actually all run on Google Maps. In fact, Apple's Maps is one of the few major competitors to Google Maps at this point, at least in the Western Hemisphere. So when you say, I want to drive from here to the grocery store, you put in the address of the grocery store, that then gets translated into a latitude longitude number. Google Maps gets that information about where you are, where you're headed. It figures out the best route for you, and it submits that back to Tesla. Now, one really interesting thing that Greenly only discovered recently, and of course you can watch this episode if you're interested in that topic but haven't seen it yet. Anyway, Tesla gets that default Google Maps information and they figure out alternate routes on their own. They don't actually use Google's alternate route features. They actually take the main route that Google suggests and they figure out alternate routes for you. They also have a whole bunch of added information on top of the basic map data. Things like, is there a stop sign here? Is there a crosswalk here? Is there a rough patch of road here? Things that would not be in Google Maps, those can be updated by Tesla's fleet, and they are added to the map data so that they can actually affect not only the alternate routes, but if you have a Model S or X that has air suspension, it can actually adjust the air suspension as it gets to an area where it knows that there could be rough patches of road. So this seems like a perfectly good system, right? You have Tesla and Google, a match made in heaven. Google provides the, primary data and the sort of rough map outline of what's going on, and Tesla fills in the gaps. What are the issues with this? Well, the issues are that Google's maps are not up to date all the time, and it really causes significant issues for Tesla. Now, for most people, if you're just using basic navigation information and you're driving the car, you can make decisions. Google or Waze could say, go this direction and do this, and you're like, well, wait a second, there's a huge, the road is blocked there, so I'm gonna have to take a detour. And then it figures out how to deal with this after the fact. So imperfections in Google Maps is not really a big deal if you're driving the car, because you can take over and deal with that stuff. When full self-driving beta is driving the car, this is a much bigger deal because the car is much more dependent on the integration of that map data to what it's actually doing. Now, just to be clear, this is not high resolution like LiDAR imagery or anything like that. This is rough navigation data that Google Maps is providing, and Tesla is filling in the gaps here. So I want to make sure people don't mistake this and think that Tesla is dependent on Google Maps to know exactly where everything is, where the lanes are, where the edges of the road are, where their cars are, buildings, things like that. It is not dependent on that. It figures that stuff out in real time, but it does need to know the direction, what road to take, and all of that information. And this leads to some significant problems. I'll give you a couple of anecdotal ones from me, but I have also heard from people on Twitter and on Discord from my Patreon patrons, etc., that there are lots and lots and lots of issues with this stuff. But one that I'd found out very, very recently after installing 11.3.4 is there is a light that was moved about 50 or 75 yards or meters, however you want to call it. Anyway, it was moved east of where it was because it was too close to the highway exit. And so I don't know how many millions of dollars Clark County spent to move this stinking light like 70 meters away from where it was before, but they moved it because there was a legal issue with it. Anyway, Google Maps has not caught up with this. There's a kind of a detoury route that goes, and then there's a new light. I think it became active on January 14th, so it's been, nearly 3 months now that it's been active, at least 2.5 months that has been changed, but it's still not updated on Google Maps. And what happened was my vehicle, my Tesla, I had it in full self-driving beta, and it was driving, and it just about ran the red light. It just was going to go right on through it, even though it visualized the red light and everything. And I'm sure that's a conflict between the vehicle going like, oh, the exact GPS location of this light is here. I'm seeing it here. I must be mistaken. It's got to actually be here. So I'm going to go up to where the light is actually supposed to be. The problem, of course, is that the light is now here, which means that the car was going to go through. So I had to slam the brakes on. And of course, now that there's that voice feedback feature, it was very nice because I was able to feed that in and say the car tried to run a red light. So that was a significant issue with navigation map data and the integration between Google Maps and Tesla. Another huge problem that crops up all the time is speed limit issues. The car constantly doesn't know what the speed limit is. It's not figuring it out. It's not properly integrating Google Maps with what it's doing until it sees a sign and then it updates. And this, again, it's anecdotal because it just applies to me, but on my drive, every single time I leave the neighborhood, I go out onto a road that's 50 miles an hour. The car thinks it's 25 until it gets to the 50-mile-an-hour speed limit sign, which is a long ways up the road. And if people are coming behind me, they're not happy about having to slow down from like 55 miles an hour down to 30 miles an hour to, follow this slowpoke that then finally sees the sign and speeds up. So this is a big, big problem. And then even worse than that, I take this sort of back road around a mall that's in our area, and that has a posted speed limit of 20 miles an hour. And so usually I'll go like a little bit faster than that, like 25, which is reasonable or something. But the car wants to go 15 and actually refuses to see the 20-mile-per-hour speed limit sign that's posted right there. It says 20. And the car just drives right past it and doesn't see it. So this is a huge problem if it's not seeing the proper speed limits until it sees the signs, and then it doesn't see the signs, and it's not integrating the Google Map data and things like that. You either driving too fast or too slow for many different circumstances. And that is very frustrating for people. And while I'm in charge of the car still, of course, I can scroll the speed limit up and down and it will adjust for that. But if this thing is ever going to be a robo-taxi or take me to work or to wherever without me having to interfere with it, it's got to deal with that much, much better than it does right now. And then, of course, you've got the issue of things like construction that was just put up today because they're working on a specific spot on the road. So it's there today, gone tomorrow, just got put up, hasn't gotten on Google Maps yet. It'll probably be gone before Google Maps even catches up to the fact that there's construction. And so that's a problem because there's a lane switch. And so the car has to deal with something last minute that it didn't know about. So there's all of this kind of stuff that is a significant issue. And it does seem to cause the biggest problems that I see with Tesla full self-driving right now is the integration of the navigation data with what's happening in the vehicle, the sort of second by second stuff. I keep calling that the midterm planner. It's the thing between like, here's my objective, I drive down the road, and here's my like little second to second loop where it's like, don't hit something, right? In between that is, what am I going to do next? How many lanes do I have to get over? Where do I need to be? What sort of things do I have to deal with? And then take an example of like, let's say a tire falls off of a car or a piece of garbage or something like that and is in the road. That's something that Google Maps will never actually catch. It could be posted on Waze a little bit with an alert or something, but it's the kind of the moment sort of thing that something like Google Maps is really not properly equipped to handle. So as might be obvious at this point, in my humble opinion, what Tesla needs to do is divorce themselves from Google Maps. And people will immediately say like, that is impossible. Google spends, millions to billions of dollars having collected all this data, gotten these road things, figured out exactly how many lanes are for each section of road, the speed limits, on and on and on. It's cost a lot of money for Google to do this. And it's an ongoing cost because of course they have to keep driving their cars around and checking to make sure everything is still updated as well as it should be. And you're absolutely right that this would be a huge kind of non-starter type of problem for everyone, except for a company that just so happens to have a fleet of vehicles that is always driving around all the time, going everywhere on the roads and collecting that data for you. This is something that Tesla could integrate into what they do. They already, as Green the Only showed, have like addendums to the map information where they're like, here, there's a stop sign, even though it's not indicated. And hopefully soon there will be there is a red light, even though Google Maps doesn't know about it. Or here, this road takes a detour from what was originally planned for that, even though Google Maps doesn't show that. So hopefully that stuff will start to appear relatively quickly. But that means that Tesla is already collecting that data, already making those updates and everything. And they could, if anybody could do it, they're the company that literally has people paying them to create map data for them if they so chose. And if this seems like a good idea to you, it definitely seems like a good idea to me. Now, the big sort of elephant in the room here is, what is the contract between Tesla and Google? They might have a 10-year or 15-year contract or something to use Google Maps and to have a no-compete clause where they're not allowed to develop their own maps to compete with Google Maps. Who knows exactly what the terms of that agreement is, but it could be pretty strong. This is the kind of thing that in 2015 or 2016, the last time they negotiated this, Google might have gotten a really good deal. And so Tesla might be locked in until the middle of this decade or even towards the end of this decade. I don't know. But the problem is that Google Maps really is not serving Tesla's full self-driving to its best capability anymore. The best thing Tesla could do would be to get out from under that contract, even if they had to pay $1 billion or something, right? They've got a gigantic war chest. They could just do that. Even if they had to pay a big bunch of money as a penalty for something like this, they should go ahead and do that as soon as they have something that they can replace Google Maps with, because it is a really, really significant problem for full self-driving. And the sooner that Tesla can collect this data, this navigation data, along with everything else, and do the planning themselves and do all of that stuff themselves and integrate the entire navigation to driving second by second stack themselves, the better full self-driving is going to get. In fact, I actually think that this vertical stacking of navigation to driving is the last major step change that Tesla actually needs to take in order to enable full self-driving beta to be as good as or better than the average human. And in my mind, that is worth just about any cost for Tesla to get out from under this contract and roll their own map data. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video and found it fun and interesting and thought-provoking. As always, if you do, please do like it so other people can find it. After all, Google/YouTube's algorithm depends on it. And also consider subscribing for more of this kind of content. As always, a huge shout out to my patrons on Patreon. Thank you all so much for your support. I truly do appreciate it. It's been really interesting. I heard a lot of stories about other people who have had navigation issues with their vehicles as well in our discussions on Discord. So if you want to join this and many other discussions, just check out the links in the description to become a channel member or a Patreon patron. And if you're interested in a whole bunch of really cool merch, check out our merch store. Link is in the description. We have Tesla Bot t-shirts, the Tesla meme t-shirt, success is a possible outcome, 4680 battery cells. All of that stuff is on t-shirts, mugs, tumblers, and on and on. So check it out. And finally, don't forget we are both Tesla and Amazon affiliates. If you look in the description, you can see how going shopping for a solar roof, a power wall, or anything on Amazon helps out the channel. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.